Good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Briley, and tonight I will be presenting about a program that we would like to implement at Nuremberger Education Center for intramural sports. The problem lies that behavioral disorders that exacerbate violent symptoms place adolescents at a higher risk for contact with the juvenile justice system, leading to citations, court appearances, and juvenile detention. Victimization of others or their property impacts society. Legal cases against juveniles involve additional hours in court, demands more time from judges, making an economic impact on the state. 50 to 75% of the adolescents who have encountered the juvenile justice system meet criteria for a mental health diagnosis. And at least 40% of the juvenile detention population has a diagnosed mental illness, at least one diagnosed mental illness, according to Gottesman and Schwartz, 2011. The population at risk is the LPS students. 80 of them, adolescent age, have behavioral health disorders that have caused them to act out aggressively. These adolescents are a population at risk for contact with the juvenile justice system due to their behavioral health disorders, coupled with symptoms that put them in danger for criminal actions. These adolescents do not have organized after-school activities to help fill their time after school. Excuse me. According to Gottesman and Schwartz, peak time for juvenile justice contact is weekdays between the hours of 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. because adolescents have too much time between the time they let out of school and the time that their parents get home. The target population consists of adolescents in Lincoln who attend Nuremberger Education Center, or NEC. Adolescents who attend NEC do so because they have displayed severe behaviors and violent behaviors in their traditional school setting due to behavioral health issues. NEC does not currently have an intramural sports program for their students. According to Donaldson and Ronan, 2006, adolescents who do not participate in after-school sports are more likely to have been arrested or used drugs than those who participate. Steptoe and Butler in 1996 conducted a large study that provided evidence that adolescents participating in more formal sports, as opposed to only PE and recess in a school setting, had lower scores on scales that examined externalizing problems, social problems, aggression problems, and delinquency problems, as opposed to adolescents who only participated in school-related activities like PE and recess. Youth who are involved in extracurricular activities have a better understanding of themselves and how they relate to others, and a higher level of self-efficacy or regulating their own behavior, according to Hiley Sharp. Intramural sports at NEC will provide structured activity in the form of sports practice 2 days per week after school and a game that will last 1 hour each Saturday morning. NEC will provide structured sports practice, again 2 times per week after school, plus bus transportation home, thus providing more hours with structure during peak juvenile justice contact time. All 12 LPS traditional schools offer intramural sports in middle school. Self-efficacy skills are especially important in adolescents who display aggressive behavior. NEC opened in 2016 as an alternative school for adolescents who were not successful in their traditional school environment due to severe behavioral issues. NEC serves 80 students. 64 of those students had been suspended for 1 or more days from their traditional school in the last quarter prior to coming to NEC. Suspensions were enforced when a student became physically aggressive or destroyed property. NEC has implemented no suspensions in their full 2 school years, showing that their program implementation is successful. NEC uses physical escorting and manual holds if a student becomes dangerous to themselves or others. NEC is averaging 3 escorts per quarter and 0.75 manual upper extremity holds per quarter. Data of escorts and manual holds show that the number of incidents of aggressive behavior has dropped significantly since at least 64 students began attending NEC. Thus, the program's de-escalation process is effective. NEC students work on a rating scale. Ratings each week are dependent on their academic and social behavior. Students who have higher ratings, like student government, have the responsibility of learning the feedback process that NEC faculty uses in order to provide peer-to-peer feedback. Currently, NEC only has 1 student who has a concern rating, which is the lowest, and 10 students who have a neutral rating, which is a step above concern. With only 11 students below a positive rating at NEC, it is clear that the student rating system and peer-to-peer feedback are effective in promoting a positive academic and social environment. NEC has the following resources at their disposal for intramural sports programming: a full gymnasium for practices and games, access to 5 LPS high schools and 4 LPS shared community sites for games or meets, rapport with faculty from traditional middle schools for guidance purposes, and access to LPS athletic office administrators. So what are the goals? One of the goals is for Nurnberger Education Center to provide intramural sports for their students for the 2019-2020 school year. NEC will do this by hiring 2 new part-time paraeducators and 2 internal special education faculty for coaching purposes by June of 2019, and by implementing 7 intramural sports that are already offered by LPS traditional middle schools into their programming by August 2019. Another goal is for Lincoln Public Schools to fund intramural sports programs at NEC for each school year beginning August 2020. LPS will measure the first year's success and decide to fund the program by seeing 80% of student athletes' behaviors improve at least 1 number on the degree of change scale, which is an evaluation method I'll talk about shortly, to provide funding by May of 2020. Cost-benefit analysis is as follows. For personnel, the NEC principal and special education director will use approximately 10% of their time, or 4 hours per week, on this program. Those match amounts include $7,100 and $7,800 each for the 2. That match amount will be provided by LPS. 2 special education coaches will use approximately 10% of their time to implement this program. For the 2 coaches, their 10% FTE equals to $9,200, which is a match amount from LPS. Coaching paraeducators will be hired on a part-time basis or half of a full-time basis at the paying rate of $13,500 per paraeducator. That times 2 is $27,000 as a request as part of this grant. A referee or official will be using approximately 0.5 of their full-time hours to officiate games for Nurnberger. That's $2,250 as a match amount that will be provided by LPS. A bus driver will use approximately 10% of his or her time, or 4 hours a week, for transporting children to and from practices and to games. The match amount provided by LPS is $2,700. For supplies and operating expenses, mailing and printing supplies will be needed to send out registration forms, to send out information to families regarding ordering uniforms, to send out any calendars that families may need for the upcoming sports season. It is estimated that these costs, including paper, toner, and mailing costs, will be around $2,100. This is a match amount provided by LPS. For equipment, team uniform shirts will be needed. There will be 7 teams with 20 students, as there's a boys and a girls team. At $12 per shirt, we estimate that this will cost around $1,680, which is a request for this grant. Coaching shirts will also be needed. 7 teams, 4 coaches per team, or 4 coaches total. At $12, we approximate will cost about $336, which is requested as a part of this grant. Basketballs, volleyballs, and soccer balls are needed for both boys and girls sporting events. 3 balls each at approximately $20. We estimate $300 as a request amount for this grant for equipment. LPS bus transportation will need to operate 3 days per week, twice for practices and once for a game, times 35 weeks. That's the approximate amount of weeks that children are in school per year. We times this by the bus expense each day of $100 for a full year, equaling $10,500, which is a requested amount for this grant. The total amounts, as you will see, the total match amount is $34,150. The total requested amount is $39,816, with an amount totaling $73,966. All match amounts are provided by LPS. The evaluation of this program will be based on 3 methods: the number of hired coaching staff at NEC, the number of filled sports per season, and a target problem/degree of change scale. Objective 1 will be considered met and successful if 2 part-time and 2 full-time coaching staff are employed at NEC by the stated date. Objective 2 will be considered met and successful if enough students register for each sport to implement them, which would be 10 per sport for boys and for girls, and if the degree of change for at least 80% of intramural sports participants moves up at least 1 number on a 5-point scale by the follow-up stage at 4 weeks post-sport each session. An increased number of degrees of change for student-athletes' aggressive behavior during a season of sports will show that the program has a direct, positive impact on aggressive behavior that puts them at risk for contact with the juvenile justice system. LPS requested at least 80% of students have a 1 number or more improvement over a year's time on the degree of change scale. If data analyzed by NEC school therapists reflects this 80% or higher, Objective 1 under goal number 2 will be considered met and successful. Thank you for your time. My references are included.